The Mondial, the 400i, the 612 Scaglietti, and the F80. What do all these cars have in common? They are all the most hated Ferraris ever made. But how did Ferrari's newest and most expensive car end up on the same list as cars that cost 1/100th as much? When the F80 first debuted about a week ago, the media was celebrating it as the greatest Ferrari ever made. But just 72 hours later, they completely turned against the F80. And it wasn't just the media that changed their minds about this car. Collectors and automotive enthusiasts have also unleashed a flood of complaints all over social media. The most common complaints against the F80 are that it's ugly, it doesn't have a V12, it sounds awful, and it's an unworthy replacement for the LaFerrari.
God's holy trousers!
But is the F80 really that bad? We're going to take a closer look at what everyone is saying about it, and then we're going to take a deep dive look at the F80 itself to decide if it's really as bad as everyone is saying. If you're new to my channel, I publish original automotive content, so if you're not subscribed yet, click below to subscribe. And be sure to click the notification bell so you can be notified about my latest videos. So far, the main complaint about the F80 is its appearance, with many people calling it ugly and plenty of people making some less than flattering comparisons. Here are just a few of the objects people have been comparing the F80 to. A shovel, a Honda Civic, an NSX and Dodge Offspring, and a pickup truck. Not too flattering. Now, there's always going to be haters, and the Ferrari brand has plenty of them. Some of the hate comes from people who love Ferraris but can't afford one, at least according to Ferrari fans. Some of the hate comes from people who are hoping to buy a brand new Ferrari only to get rejected by the dealerships. And some people couldn't even tell you why they hate Ferrari, they just do. But when people have intelligent and well-constructed opinions on why they hate a particular Ferrari, it's harder to ignore those. And several YouTubers have made some statements that are worth listening to. A particular YouTuber named How to Spec offers some interesting insight on why the F80 turned out so ugly.
It's that it doesn't look like a Ferrari. None of their cars do. You could put a Lamborghini badge on it and it not be out of place. The design of this car is completely universal, and that's a huge problem. The brands used to have a design language that would trickle throughout all of their cars. Now it seems that every car manufacturer hires different designers for every different car, every different panel, and for the interior. There is no cohesion, no similarity in their catalogue of cars, and this is not just a Ferrari issue, it's a problem with every manufacturer.
So how do I feel about the looks of the F80? When the prototypes were making their rounds, I was thinking it had potential to be a great looking car, depending on what was camouflage and what was actually body panel. But once the F80 was revealed, I was pretty let down. I will say that the ugliness of the McLaren W1 that was revealed just 9 days earlier helped to soften the blow of the F80's ugliness, but I was still let down. My first thought was that the F80 was essentially a less attractive version of the Daytona SP3, but the more I looked at it, the worse it got. I would basically describe this car as a Lego set of a Ferrari that a 4-year-old designed in about 20 minutes. But I will admit that from 3/4 overhead angles, it does look pretty cool. It's a rule. Ferrari Halo cars have V12s. The Testarossa had one, the F50 had one, the Enzo had one, and the LaFerrari had one. A V12 engine exudes power, emotion, noise, exclusivity, and good old-fashioned psychological warfare. Oh, your Porsche has a 4-liter flat 6? That's cute. My Ferrari has a 6-liter V12. And Ferrari is still producing cars with V12s today, like the Daytona SP3 and the 12 Cilindri. So why does Ferrari's latest Halo car have a V6? Some people might say that it's because it's better for the environment. But when it comes to the F80, that argument doesn't work. A small and efficient engine makes a lot of sense for a commuter vehicle that's driven tens of thousands of miles every year. But the people who own the F80 won't be driving them for tens of thousands of miles every year. They'll be driving them more like 10 or 15 miles a year, and that's if they drive them at all. So as far as an environmental impact goes, it wouldn't matter if Ferrari put a 1-cylinder engine in that car or a 20-cylinder engine in that car. So why did Ferrari put a V6 in the F80? The engine in the F80 is a modified version of the unit that powers the Le Mans Hypercar 499P, so it may have just been a cost savings measure. A cost savings measure on a $4 million car. 3 days after the F80 was revealed, the groans about the car's looks and V6 engine continued to get louder, and if people weren't mad enough, YouTuber NM2255 released a video of the F80 driving on the Imola circuit, and for the first time we got to hear what the car sounded like. And any lingering love for the F80 that may have still existed was flushed straight down the toilet. But does it really sound that bad? Let's listen and see. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Sounds like a machine press from the 1950s. Let's listen to some high-speed passes on the track. That's just not the way a Ferrari is supposed to sound. For the rest of the event, the F80 is being followed around the track by race cars. And I honestly think Ferrari did this to cover up the lackluster exhaust note of the F80.
Trofeo di Le Mans, quindi avremo la ciliegina da aggiungere alla torta e poi andremo ad aggiungere un po' alla volta tutte le altre vetture del mondo endurance e corse clienti e poi andremo con quella magia che vi anticipavo.
After watching the footage, Adam Ismail from The Drive said, "Looks are subjective though, and while I typically say sound is too, I don't believe anyone will recall the song that the F80 sings the same way they might if they heard, say, an F50 bouncing off the rev limiter in the snow. It's relatively quiet, low, but not impactfully so, and simply not that remarkable. In the first drive-by clip, for example, you can't even really hear the thing over the whooshing air and water until it comes screaming past. And even then, it's less of a scream and more like a hum." And Brian Sylvestro from Motor One says, "While sound ultimately isn't the most vital feature in a car like this, it's still an important factor. To hear it sound like this is a bit of a disappointment, especially considering the heart-racing, high-revving shrieks from the V12s that came before." He also noted that he would much rather own the Daytona SP3 or the 12-cylindry. The last major complaint that people have with the F80 is that it is not a worthy replacement for the LaFerrari. Well, let's take a close look at the two cars and see. The LaFerrari has a top speed of 220 miles per hour. It can do 0 to 62 in 2.6 seconds and 0 to 124 miles per hour in just under 6.9 seconds. The F80 has a top speed of 217 miles per hour, does 0 to 62 in 2.15 seconds, and 0 to 128 in 5.8 seconds. So the LaFerrari has a top speed that is 3 miles per hour faster, but slower 0 to 62 and 0 to 124 mile per hour times. But how about the looks? The F80 is gangly, distracting, and confusing looking. But from certain angles, it does look better than the LaFerrari. And while I have to say that, in my opinion, the LaFerrari is far from being the best looking Ferrari, it is significantly more beautiful than the F80. And how about the sound? No comparison. The LaFerrari is the only one of these cars that actually sounds like a Ferrari. So is the F80 really that bad? Yeah, it is. Part of me wants to say that a lot of the hate is coming from Ferrari claiming that the F80 is such a huge step ahead of the LaFerrari, and the $4 million price tag isn't winning them any favor in the court of public opinion either. But I honestly think that if they positioned this car below the LaFerrari and sold it for half as much, people would still hate it. Thanks for watching, and for more automotive content that you cannot find anywhere else, click here to subscribe.